the majestic Cathedral of St Andrew I, called is the true pride of the town of Wells in southwest England. Its construction spanned from the 12th to the 15th century. The main attraction of the temple is the ancient tower clock with 2 dials. One on the outside of the cathedral is a regular 12-hour clock. The one inside is more interesting. It is a 24-hour clock. It is also a model of the universe, as envisioned by medieval astronomers. At the centre is the Earth, around which the Sun and the Moon move. The device not only shows the current time, but also the lunar day. The first mechanical clocks appeared around the 6th century AD, but 2,000 years before that, the Egyptians could determine the time with remarkable accuracy without complex devices. A grand complex for observing celestial bodies was discovered by Egyptian archaeologists 3 years ago during excavations in one of the ancient cities of the Nile Delta. However, this information was only made public last autumn. Recently, an observatory was found near the Temple of Buto, about 80 kilometers from Alexandria, the largest observatory in the region. Why did the scientists keep their discovery a secret for so long? All this time, they studied the artifacts to accurately determine the purpose of the structure. Quite a few of the devices used by ancient Egyptian astronomers were found, and, in accordance with the additional tablets discovered by archaeologists, inscriptions on the walls of the room, scientists unequivocally concluded that this was nothing less than an ancient Egyptian observatory. The structure, made of clay bricks, was shaped like the letter G. Its entrance faced precisely east, so that astronomers could observe the sunrise without obstruction. The complex was not built on the territory of the temple of the goddess of fertility Wajet by chance. She was depicted as a giant cobra. In the land of the pharaohs, priests observed the movement of the stars. They were called Mer Unat, or heavenly observers. On one wall, scientists noticed hieroglyphs with this very phrase. The find led archaeologists to believe that they had indeed discovered an observatory. We know that as early as the 3rd millennium BC, many Egyptian temples had special centres for observing celestial bodies. Experts finally confirmed their suspicions when they excavated a structure consisting of a 5-metre slab with blocks, 3 vertical and 2 horizontal. Some of them showed faint lines. Scientists did not immediately understand what they had found, but then the specialists had an idea. These were most likely giant sundials. The notches were made to track the changes in the falling shadow throughout the day. It is understandable that most of the building did not survive because, most likely, within this observatory, there was also a tower for observing the sky, both at night and during the day. There are many additional rooms, apparently for research. These small rooms were also used to store religious artifacts and astronomical instruments. In one of the rooms, for example, they found a merket, a plumb line with a wooden or metal handle. With its help, priests determined the time at night and the position of the stars by the shadow from the string and weight. Also, on the territory of this observatory, there are statues of Osiris, Nemes, Ptah, and many ceramics and jewellery. The Buto Observatory was recognised as the oldest of its kind in Egypt. However, historians know that local priests began studying the starry sky from the very beginning of civilization in the Nile Delta. Astronomical images and texts have been preserved, for example, in the temple of Queen Hatshepsut in Deir el-Bahri. It was built in the 15th century BC. The Egyptians knew about the existence of the 5 planets in the solar system that can be seen from Earth with the naked eye: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Scientists call the country in North Africa one of the oldest centres of astronomical development, alongside China, India, and Babylon. Egypt was the birthplace of astronomy because, firstly, the Egyptians often traded and sailed the Nile, the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea. For navigation, they needed to understand astronomy. It is also related to the flooding of the Nile, from which the crop yield of ancient Egypt depended. Researchers of the land of the pharaohs found more than 40 constellations in the sky. Some of them have been identified by modern scientists. For example, the Egyptians depicted the Big Dipper as a bull's leg, and the Little Dipper was most likely called the hippopotamus. However, historians have not yet determined where, for example, the crocodile constellation was located, but the priests observed the star Sopdet, known to us as Sirius, with particular attention. Its heliacal rising, that is, its appearance in the sky after a long period of invisibility, served as a signal. The flooding of the Nile would soon begin. Therefore, according to the calendar year created by the Egyptians, which was established around the 3rd millennium BC, the year for the Egyptians began on July 19th, when in the city of Memphis, one of the capitals of Egypt, the star Sirius was visible in the sky just before the sun rose. The Egyptian year consisted of 365 days. They were divided into 12 months of 30 days each, and the remaining 5 days were called Heriu Rempet, meaning above the year. It was believed that during this period, the most powerful deities of the ancient civilization appeared one after another: Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. The Egyptians had only 3 seasons: the season of flooding, the season of crop emergence, and the season of drought. These 3 seasons were each 4 months long. Later, throughout the period of the various kingdoms of ancient Egypt, additional adjustments were made. Soon after the introduction of the calendar, astronomers noticed that each new year began earlier. Gradually, it shifted from summer to spring, then to winter, and so on in a cycle. The priests figured out why this was happening. After all, the year actually consists of 365 days and a few additional hours, which over time accumulate into an extra day. For a long time, nothing was done about it, and the Egyptian New Year remained a floating date. Only in 238 BC, after the conquest of Egypt by the Greeks, did King Ptolemy III Euergetes, at the suggestion of the priests, decide to bring order to the calendar. He declared that every 4th year would be a leap year, meaning it would be 1 day longer. By the way, it is interesting that when Alexander the Great arrived in Egypt in 332 BC, he also visited the centres of Egyptian priesthood, where he was shown scrolls recording more than 800 lunar eclipses. Egyptian astronomers had great authority in the ancient world. Therefore, when Julius Caesar decided to abandon the Roman lunar calendar in 45 BC, he invited a specialist from Alexandria named Sosigenes for consultation upon the advice of his associates. Thus, Ptolemy's system became the basis for the Julian calendar. Later, it was replaced by the Gregorian calendar. But the legacy of Caesar is still used by some Orthodox churches. Essentially, most of the achievements of, say, Greek and Roman mathematicians are nothing more than data timely passed on by Egyptian priests to the Greeks. Their astronomical observations became the foundation for all of ancient Egyptian mathematics, which, in turn, became the basis for the studies of Thales and Pythagoras. By the way, the Egyptians had their own zodiac sign system. It consisted of 12 signs, named after gods. Each sign corresponded to several periods in the year when the planets and stars were at specific distances from each other. For example, from January 8th to 21st and from February 1st to 11th, mortals were protected by the sun god Amun-Ra, and in the first 10 days of March and early December, by Osiris, the king of the underworld. For centuries, priests used astrology solely for economic and religious purposes. Predictions and horoscopes appeared in Egypt only in the 1st century BC.